and welcome to Reboot with Real Foods weekly live show where we dive into the food of the week. So what I did this week is earlier in the week I asked everybody, I said, you know what, okay, here everybody knows that they're supposed to be eating more vegetables. I said, hit me with a vegetable that you feel like you should be eating because it's healthy, but you don't like it, you sort of steer clear of it because you don't really like it. So I threw out the challenge to you. I'm going to make a vegetable delicious. Okay, so I was thinking kale, I was thinking broccoli, I was thinking Brussels sprouts. This is what I thought was going to be coming at me. Instead, it was a sort of a bit of a majority rules on eggplant. And I have to say that I just didn't see eggplant coming. And it was a fantastic challenge, so thank you very much, because we don't eat eggplant in our house. Partly because I was in the same boat you were, where I thought eggplant kind of tasted gross, didn't like the texture, and my husband is allergic to eggplant. So we just really don't even eat it in our house. But it turns out he's away this week, so it was a perfect week for eggplant. And my wonderful daughter is holding the camera today, and I went on an eggplant challenge. And we've come up with some really, really delicious ways to eat eggplants that I want to talk about today. So first of all, there's in the grocery store near us, there's really two kinds of eggplant that you can get. This is what I think of as the regular old eggplant, or aubergine, some people call it. And this is called, in our grocery store, it's called a Chinese eggplant. It's the long, skinny, it kind of looks like a purple zucchini. So we tried both of these. We came up with recipes for both of these. Now, one of the things that I objected to about eggplant, and I think it bothers a lot of people, is that texture on the inside of it. And it's one of those things where it's one of the most gorgeous colors on the outside, and then you open it up and you're like, wow. It's like the outside package just does not, you don't really not expecting it to kind of look like that when you open it up. But okay, so I could narrow it down to just one thing that I wanted to show you, because eggplant, it turns out, is used in a lot of different cultures for cooking, and it's a really great vegetable because it can take on a lot of flavors. So probably the easiest thing that you can make from eggplant, the most traditional eggplant dish that's super easy to whip together, is something called baba ghanoush, which is just really fun to say apart from everything else. And this is something I used to actually buy at the grocery store, and I don't even think I fully appreciated that it was an eggplant dish. But it's super, super easy to make. So to make baba ghanoush, all you do is you take an eggplant, you cut it in half, like this demonstration here, and then to make it really easy for the later steps, you do a little cross-hatch pattern on it, if you can see that, or I just took a knife and I scored quite deeply, as close as I could get to not then going through the skin on the other side, so I scored it. So then you just roast that in your oven. If you've got something else roasting, you can do it at that temperature. Otherwise, around 375. Do that for maybe 45 minutes. You want your eggplant, the secret I discovered for eggplant not being rubbery and gross is you actually just want to cook it for a really long time, and then it gets delicious and light and creamy. So you cook that for about 45 minutes, roast it, and then you just put it in your food processor or your blender. I use my blender. You take the cooked eggplant, you take a couple cloves of garlic, throw them in. You do a couple spoonfuls, and by the way, I'm going to have all the recipes for this that you can actually just let me know if you want the recipes, and I've got them all written out for you. You take a couple spoonfuls of tahini, a little bit of cumin, some lemon. So really very simple. I decided I love something a little spicy, so I threw a little sriracha in to give it a little oomph, and you just whir it around in your food processor, your blender, till it gets to be, if you can see that, not the most attractive thing in the world, but it has a really lovely, delicious flavor, and it's fantastic for, I tried dipping all sorts of different things into it, but fresh sticks of cucumber are delicious. So it's a great way to just get extra vegetables in, or to provide a little vehicle for eating raw vegetables if you want a little dip that you know is really healthy. So that's recipe number one, baba ghanoush. Baba ghanoush, you can keep saying it because it's really fun. The next recipe that I want to show you is, I'm going to start at the other end of it. I'm going to show you what it looks like finished. It was a recipe that I found that I adapted that I was actually for a side dish, but I decided, now I'm going to have people over because I've decided that I'm going to serve this as a little hors d'oeuvre to have, you know, when you have hors d'oeuvres out and people want to snack on things. Doesn't that look pretty? Okay, and I'll show you exactly what this is. So these are made from one of these long skinny eggplants or aubergines, the Chinese eggplant we call it here. And what I did is I just chopped it up into rounds. When you cook it shrinks up like that. And well, I think this one I used a sample must have been bigger because it didn't shrink up quite that much. But you just bake them in the oven for 10 minutes per side at a high temperature, 450. Remember, you want to make sure that you're really cooking it so it gets past rubbery into creamy. So I just cooked the rounds, and then what I did is I mixed together, in one of my things here I have it, then I mixed together, I've got it here, some of this Thai curry paste. I was really looking for this flavor. There's a spicy eggplant stir fry you can get at our local Thai restaurant. So some Thai curry paste, some miso. Miso turns out to be a really, really great combination with eggplant. Miso is a soybean paste, and it has a nice little umami salty flavor without having to add a whole bucket load of salt. Mix that with some rice vinegar, and then something sweet. So we've got the salty, we've got the spicy, we've got the acidy, and then something sweet. And when you combine all those things together, it's like taste heaven. So for the sweet, what I do is I make something called a date syrup. And a date syrup is a really great thing to have on hand when you want to sweeten things, because it's a really healthy way without adding a whole bucket load of sugar or adding a whole bunch of honey or maple syrup or anything like that. And all date syrup is dates. I use medjool dates and I blend them in my high-speed blender with water and add some lemon juice, and that's date syrup. Actually, I do it obviously in my magic bullet because that's what that container is. And then I just have that in my fridge. So whenever anything calls for something like a salad dressing, or you want to sweeten, like if you're baking something, you can just use date syrup. It's a really healthy trick for you. If you don't want to make date syrup, you can just use honey as well. Again, I'm going to include all the recipes with all the measurements. So you mix all that together. When you mix it together, it just looks like this lovely little orange paste there. And then you just spread this on each one of these rounds. You just take a little teaspoon and you spread a nice thin layer, and then you put the whole thing under the broiler for just a few minutes, and then it kind of bubbles up and it gets that nice brown flavor to it. And then you take toasted sesame seeds. I always recommend buying raw sesame seeds and then toasting them yourself. If you buy toasted sesame seeds, they often have a lot of oil in them. To toast them yourself, I use my little cast iron pan. I don't put any oil or anything. I put it over a medium-low heat, and it just takes a little patience. You can be cooking other things while you're doing it, and I just toast my sesame seeds, and they add such a delicious flavor. So then sprinkled over top of that is some chopped scallions and some toasted, these are scallions, and some toasted sesame seeds. And I'm really tempted to grab one and take a bite of it right now because they're so good. They have such a lovely punch of flavor. So we've got, these are both kind of almost like hors d'oeuvre sort of things. And then there's a main course eggplant dish that I want to show you that is so good. So again, I did this was based on a recipe by Jamie Oliver that I found. He is a glug with oiler though, so I had to adapt it a little bit, and it's so delicious. Okay, so again, this one I used the long skinny eggplants for, though you could easily do this with the regular size eggplant as well. And I started out by cutting slits in my eggplant, if you can see that. Kind of the same way you would do if you were, back in the old days when we used to cook like roast, like an eye of the round, and you do the slit that you were going to shove the garlic in. Sort of like that. So all these, I cut slits all the way around my eggplant. And then I took my mortar and pestle. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, you can easily do this in something like a bullet. But this is kind of kind of therapeutic apart from everything else. And I took 4 cloves of garlic, and I took some grated ginger, and I took 1 seeded serrano chili pepper. The original recipe that I did from Jamie Oliver called for like 4, and not even seeded. I don't even know how anybody could eat that without blowing the roof off their mouth. But anyway, so then I mortar and pestled that up, got all my frustrations out, and it comes out to this lovely little this mushed up sauce. And then I threw, normally what a lot of people would do is put olive oil, and at that point, but I ended up doing a little balsamic vinegar. I tested this last night, and that worked really well, and it was delicious. So then I've got this, like, I don't know if you can see it in there, but I've got this little paste going on. And so then, so definitely a roll up your sleeves sort of thing. So then, and this is, I love doing this kind of stuff, just digging right in and getting your hands dirty and feeling like you're really interacting with your food. So then I take some of the paste, and I actually just rub it right into the eggplant, and I sort of just get it right in there, like all those lovely little slits. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do the whole thing. On the outside, it's all stuffed into the slits there of the eggplant. And then I put this on a baking tray. Now I did like 3 or 4 of these last night because it was, for the whole family, but just to show you today, I'm just showing you. So then I just put it on a baking tray. I love lining, by the way, with these silicone mats. It makes cleanup really easy. And then so I put it on a tray, and then I just put a whole bunch of like grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes all over it, and put the whole, and I apparently put my hair in it, and then you just put the whole thing in the oven, and you let it roast at kind of a low temperature. I did it at 350, and you roast the whole thing for about 45 minutes. Your house, first of all, smells amazing. And then just for the last, so 45 minutes, and then for the last 15 minutes, I mix together, again, some of the miso, because miso just goes so well with eggplant, some miso and some of my date paste. I just mix that together, and then I thinned it with water, and I just brushed that on the outside of the eggplants, cooked it for another 15 minutes, and that, what that does is that just adds this lovely layer of umami flavor glaze on the top. Okay, so by the time you're done that, it takes an hour, but it's not a lot of active time. Okay, I'm just gonna wipe my hands on my apron there. Sorry, that's really gross. So that's in the oven. You let that cook for its hour. If anything else that you're preparing, we had it with some delicious brown rice and some salad. So that's cooking away. And then in the meantime, while that's doing, I just chopped up a bunch of scallions, those green onions, and a whole whack of cilantro. And when I chop cilantro, I do not worry about the stems. I just chop the whole thing, and then I squeezed a lime in there. So I've got this lovely little kind of like green juice. So then when my eggplant is all cooked at the end of that hour, I just cut it roughly into like chunks about that size, and it's so liquidy and good in the middle at that point. And the tomatoes are all soft and warm, and so put that whole thing in a bowl, stirred in with my cilantro and lime sauce, and the whole thing is absolutely delicious. It's got this sophistication of flavors, and it's delicious, and every bite that you're eating is incredibly healthy for you. So that is, thank you again for the challenge. That was the eggplant week. All of these recipes are available for you. Just let me know in the messages below. Just let me know if you want me to send you the recipes, and I will send them to you. Enjoy your weekend, and go out and buy some eggplant. Except if you live in Huntsville like I do, you may have a little bit of trouble getting eggplant because we've been on a lot of shopping sprees and buying out all the eggplant supply in the local grocery stores. But go out and get some eggplant and enjoy some of these recipes.